basically, Walter was saying you signed what's called a net metering agreement with the utility company, and in the past, if you were installing a smaller system, a residential system, you didn't need to ask anyone, and you still don't technically. But on some circuits, they've hit this saturation, this 10% saturation. So there's two rules. These are like regulations that the PUC regulates the utility company, and they one of them is Rule 18, which is the net metering law. And right now, what it says is that only 3% of the island's peak energy demand. So they calculate what the peak energy demand is on the island, and 3% of that can be net metered systems on a system-wide basis, which actually includes Molokai and Lanai. So that number is 6 megawatts, I believe. Is that correct, Walter? Yeah.
Wait, 3?
6 for 3%?
If it's 3%, it would be 9.
9 megawatts?
Yeah, Nico peaks at 200.
Okay.
Oh no, yeah, 6.
6. Okay.
Yeah.
So 6 megawatts, and we're at about 1.5% of that. So just I think 3.2 megawatts, but the number keeps changing day by day, and so many more people are getting systems. So we predict that by less than a year from now, we'll be at that 3%. And so that just needs to change if people are going to put in more systems. And then there's another rule called Rule 14, which is the distributed generation rule, which doesn't have anything to do with solar or net metering. It just has to do with distributed generation systems. A lot of those, and why Lahaina is blacked out right now, isn't because there's a lot of solar systems there. There's a lot of combined heat and power systems. And the same is true in Ka'anapali. That's the other circuit that's blacked out. And then the one Walter said too is the airport. Again, there's probably some combined heat and power things or generators going on there. And then Pukalani. But what we're trying to do is basically say, well, first of all, if it's utility owned, distributed generation, maybe that shouldn't count. And second of all, that right now before the PUC, there's a change to this whole idea, and the idea is that instead of 10% distributed generation per circuit, it would be 15%, and instead of 3% for the system, it would just be on a circuit level, because really what it comes down to is circuit level. And I think it's going to pass. So in a way, this petition might just help push the process along, but it seems like the parties, and that being the consumer advocate and the utility right now, are more or less in agreement that they should go to 15% per circuit and include net metering in that amount.
Brad, how many circuits are there on Maui?
I have no idea. You might know. There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Hundreds?
I'd say about at least 100. I would guess somewhere 50 to 100.
Yeah, I mean it gets down from your transmission to your distribution level to your kind of street level. So there's different. It's
it depends
depending on
what
where
you
you
define
are.
as a circuit in a way.
But the nearest substation.
But this law only applies not to transmission circuits, but only to distributed circuits, or what would they call them, secondary circuits, or
Secondary distribution side.
yeah, on the distribution side. So anyway, we put together this petition, or kind of whatever you want to call it, and it says that the 3% system-wide net metering limit's too low, and it should be changed to this 15%, and 10% DG should be increased to 15%, and 15 or 10% anyway isn't a hard number. What they're saying is when we get to that, we start to want to study the circuit. But right now, the customer that wants to bring that system online has to pay for the study, which costs more than your system. So really, in a way, it's like saying you can't do the system. But going forward, as part of this rule change, the utility would pay for the study. The other thing right now is that they also would say, well, you can pay for the study, but we can't tell you actually what it's going to cost or how long it's going to take. So now if they're going to pay for it, well, they're going to pay for it, so they'll pay for whatever it costs. Realize, of course, as ratepayers, though, too, that whatever they pay because they're paying for it, that means they're going to be able to recover that cost in their rate case. So, all of these things, including the feed-in tariff and other things, are all basically likely to increase your rate. So the rates in Maui and across Hawaii, because of the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, are likely to just go up. But the idea is, well, instead of just having following oil prices forever up, we're probably going to jump up some, but then because we have a higher mix of renewables, we're going to be able to stay more steady over the long term and save over the long term. So the example that was like got a lot of negative press in the paper was the airport or the state did this deal with one of the solar companies where they financed at 36 cents a kilowatt hour, I believe, or around that, the power that they're buying off of the solar system. And everyone goes, oh my God, because, you know, at the time, that's close to what the rate they were paying. But, you know, they felt like they had to set this example and get the ball rolling, and so they signed themselves up for this relatively high rate. But I would predict that in 10 years, it's not out of the question to think that that's what they're going to be paying, and in 20 years, you know, they're going to, or, you know, over the next 10 years, they start to save money. That may be, they may have signed themselves up for a little bit too high a rate, but the idea is we can pay a little bit more for electricity now and then stabilize our rate over time.